Hey there guys, welcome to the Happy Toy Factory. Today I'm going to be reviewing the various Five Nights at Freddy's figures by FUNKO. First, before I start, you may notice that the Freddy figure is missing from the line. That's because I could literally not find him anywhere. There was not a store anywhere near me that was carrying him. So yeah, that's unfortunately a bit of a problem, but the good thing is that all I've heard about Golden Freddy is that he's a exact repaint of the Freddy figure, and the overall detail of Freddy is the equivalent to the Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy figures, so I'm not really going to be missing out on much, but as a result I will not be reviewing the Springtrap figure, seeing as at the moment he is incomplete, and I just think it would be pointless to review an incomplete figure, and I'd like to review these ones ASAP. So just thought I'd get that out of the way, and enjoy the review. Starting off with what made Fluffy Rabbits the scariest thing known to mankind, Bonnie is a really cool figure that comes with his signature guitar. He can hold on to it quite well, there as you can see, so that's good. It's just very basic in paint. It looks as it does in the actual game, so that's good. Just a little red base. What's actually interesting is that there's not any copyright information on it, which is really cool. The only copyright stuff is just on the bottom of the feet. The strings are painted a silver, and so are the little dots at the front. Sorry, I do not know my guitar lingo, so pardon me for that. Overall, really nice accessory, very solid plastic as well, so you're not going to be bending it out of shape or anything. The only problem is that Bonnie's hands are very stiff, and as a result, there can be a little bit of wear and tear and scrapes on the paint. So that's one thing to look out for when you're posing Bonnie with his guitar. On to the actual figure itself, he looks just as he does in the game. First I'm going to go with articulation. Head can do a 360, forward and back, side to side, as per all the figures. It's on a ball joint. Arm can move around, out ever so slightly, not too much due to the shoulder pads. Arms can do 360, can bend, and the wrists can turn. I think the wrists are the only parts of the figures that aren't on ball joints. They're on little pegs. The legs can kick forward ever so slightly, not that much, but they can kick out to a good degree. Knees can bend to a full 90 degrees. There's no articulation at the ankle, but the articulation at the knee kind of makes up for that, so that's cool. It makes for a good compromise. Overall, not bad at all in terms of the articulation department. The figure is very good in terms of its paint job. Not much I can really criticize on here. There are a couple little areas, such as here, there's a bit of smudge around the nose where the gray wash to make the figure look a little bit more dirty didn't really come out too well. A little bit on the ears as well, I just noticed, but overall not too bad. The eyes are painted purple, as I believe they are in the game. Detail on the teeth is nice. The only thing that's a little bit annoying is that seeing as the figures don't have any jaw articulation, which is a major letdown, all the figures have just like a black block inside the mouth. Bit of a shame, can look a little jarring at times, like say here where the light's reflecting off the corner. So that's a bit of an issue, particularly with Foxy, who has his mouth open a good bit. Figure comes with his little red bow tie. For some reason the shoulder pads are done a little bit different than the actual, rest of the figure. It's sculpted in the same plastic as far as I can see, but instead of having the texture kind of smoothly applied and then just given a bit of a wash, it's actually quite rough. Like, I don't know if you can hear my finger kind of scraping against that. For some reason, they did it that way. Not entirely sure why, and at times it can look a little bit strange. I think Chica is the only figure where it really looks overly evident. But aside from that, the figures have really good sculpting on their fur, on the bodies to give off the effect of fur, and of course they've got a dirty wash. What's also really cool is that all the figures have their eyelids kind of sculpted almost in a dazed position to give the figures kind of a, like I say, dazed look, which is really nice because the figures, the characters in the game never really look fully awake because, well, they're robots. So it's cool that they gave them more of an animatronic kind of dead robotic look rather than a sentient haunted thing look. I don't know, I'm rambling now. Overall, very good figure with a neat little inclusion. Alright, so Chica's probably one of my more favorite figures from the lines. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of the various colors. Golden Freddy, Freddy, and Bonnie have more or less the same colors all across them. Chica's got a good blend of oranges, whites, and yellows, and with the cupcake added on, it just gives a little bit more to look at. The only gripes which I really have with Chica are that when I got her, she had these really bad bits of black paint, little leaks of paint, one by her eye, one by her head, and I could swear, oh yeah, and another few at the back of her head. I'm glad they're not all over the figure, but it does look a little bit strange at times, and she's got her really thick eyebrows. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Bonnie's the only one without eyebrows, as how he appears in the game, which is good. That's good attention to detail. The nostrils are a little bit of a problem. I would have liked if they were sculpted instead of just painted on. It would have been nice if they had given just like some slightly deep sockets there. But it's nothing too bad. Overall, the shape of the figure is very, very nice. She's got her bib. Oh no, everything's going out of focus again. She's got her bib with the Let's Eat, which is really, really cool. That's painted quite well. The weathering on Chica, I noticed, is probably the best out of all the figures. And I know that for Bonnie, it might be a little bit, it might be a little bit harder to get that across, seeing as his colors are mostly darker. But on Freddy as well, I noticed he's got kind of semi-dark colors, and yet the weathering doesn't really appear on him that well. Bottom parts of her legs are actually painted in a different, they're not given a weathered look, nor are they given that kind of, nor are they sculpted with the kind of furry texture. They're done with just smooth plastic, which is really, really nice, seeing as that's how they were done in the game. I'm really glad they paid attention to that. Endoskeleton parts actually painted in kind of like a dark silver, which is really nice, seeing as that's the color they were in the game, and it stands out even more. I don't think it blends in with any of the figures. Maybe Bonnie slightly, because he's got that gray wash on the majority of him, but it still is very, very apparent where the joints are as they are in the game, which is really, really cool. As an accessory, Chica comes with her cupcake. I believe the name just given was Mr. Cupcake, so that's fine. What's nice is that there's no legal stuff at the bottom of the plate, which is something kind of interesting. I noticed that on the guitar as well, like I said, and I didn't see anything on the microphone for Golden Freddy either. It's basically painted, but it still gives off a good effect. It's given its little orange eyes. He's got his little buck teeth there, which is quite cool. Candle at the top, and a little paper effect at the bottom, and the actual cupcake itself, the icing, frosting stuff, is just painted in pink. But overall, it's given that nice paint treatment with the eyes and all that. Aside from a few little paint issues, it's still a very, very well put together figure. Next up is probably everyone's least favorite figure in the line, Golden Freddy. Yeah, not much to say. He's my least favorite as well. If you have the Freddy figure and you're thinking about getting the Golden Freddy figure, honestly, the only reason I'd get him, and it's the only reason I got him, is just to complete the Springtrap figure. Aside from that, he's a major pass. What's annoying is that since he features the same articulation as every other figure, you can't get him in the iconic sitting position. You can only get him in a standing pose. That's also another thing I forgot to mention with these figures. Since all of the joints, every single one of them except for the wrists, are on ball joints, the appendages can be detached and stuck onto other figures, so you can create your own little hybrid, as everyone thought Springtrap was going to be. So overall, it features the same kind of wash effect as on Bonnie, a little bit tidier. There's still maybe a couple areas that don't really show up on camera where the paint may have been a little bit messed up. It looks good, but as I said, seeing as it's just a solid repaint of the Freddy figure, you're not really getting much out of this. Aside from that, he's got a matte black top hat, which is a very cool rhyme I just made up. He's got his little ears. What's cool is that the eyeballs themselves are actually painted in a gloss, whereas the eyelids are in a matte black, so it makes them stand out a little bit more, and when the light shines into them, it almost looks like he's got the glowing eyes, which is really, really cool. What's also useful is that Freddy's mouth, he's got square teeth as opposed to Bonnie, who had rounded teeth, and then Chica, who had square teeth but were quite small. He's got solid square teeth, so the little black block inside the mouth isn't really as apparent, and he's got the little dimple things. on the side. I suppose they're supposed to imitate whiskers. Overall, not too bad, and he's got his black bow tie. I suppose if you're a fan of Golden Freddy, if he is your favorite character or one of your favorite characters in the game, he's a good figure to pick up. He comes with a little microphone, which will stick snugly. I know some people are having problems with the microphone fitting in his hand, but if you really push it in there and let it sit for a while, the hand will kind of stick to it and it won't fall out. In fact, I don't think the microphone has ever fallen out of the hand, so that's quite good. But it looks as it does in the game with the little black handle. A little silver globe with a black band around it. The only thing it's missing, I think some versions of it had like a tiny little antenna sticking out at the bottom. I could be wrong. I think maybe it was just the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 microphone, but I thought I remember it being there in some version of Freddy. But overall, it's not bad. And I suppose if you wanted to, if maybe you thought the actual Freddy figure itself wasn't really that well done, you could pick this one up and repaint it to look like normal Freddy, or you could add your own paint appliances. Also, another thing is that the soles of his feet are the same color as his normal feet. So, yeah, not really much to talk about on him at all. Yeah, I guess he's an alright figure, but not one of my favorites. And closing off the review is everyone's absolute favorite. Yes, this is the most demanded figure in the Five Nights at Freddy's line, and boy, I had to do some searching for him. To the point where I actually had to travel overseas just to get the figure. Yeah. He's also got the head and body of Springtrap, so you can't really assemble anything at all, actually, unless you have him. And, of course, he's everyone's favorite character. I think this was a crafty move by Funko, but either or, I'm glad I got him now. Some things people will notice is that I've already gone ahead and modified the figure. I added a little white dot in the pupil. I've painted the endoskeleton silver, and on the endoskeleton parts of the legs, I've painted the inner bits black. That's because they were always issues that I thought the figure could have been improved on. Initially, it was just a black pupil, black endoskeleton, even though it was sculpted, and these bits of the legs were just the same silver as the legs. And it's little things like that I think would have really made the figure pop, because then it gives all the more color and variety to him. You have the silver against the black and the kind of pinkish, kind of peach of his chest, and then you've got the white against the black and kind of gold almost of his iris. And then you've got the black against the darker silver. I think it would have been nice if Funko had painted those on, but it's very, very easy. For the pupil, you just need a precise hand. I managed to paint the pupil on just a little dot of paint. This is just done with like a little marker, which I painted, I painted the edges of the endoskeleton black afterwards to kind of mop up. Here we've got little, black interiors I just did with like a Sharpie. So overall, it's very, very easy to fix any minor flaws. But this is a very, very good figure because it is the most articulate figure out of the entire line. Yes, as you can see, his head is posed. It's actually double jointed, which the other heads aren't. So you can make him do cool little dances here and there. I think it mainly helps by the fact that the figure is incredibly skinny. He's very, very lean and slender, which the other figures aren't. They're very bulky due to their costumes, which, yeah, is understandable, but this figure's cool because now you can get very, very elaborate poses. As you can see, all moves. The only bit of articulation that's additional, aside from the kind of double-jointed head, is the hand, which is on a ball joint. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people hate this hand. I personally don't have an issue with it. I've never had it fall off. I've never knocked it out of his hand or anything. Yeah, it pops out easily. As you can see, it's very, very, it's not a very deep ball joint, but you can still move his hand around in a good amount of positions. Again, it's painted in that dark silver as the rest of the figure. And when you put it in, you can slightly feel a little click, a little pop as the hand goes into the ball joint. So it's nothing too bad, and honestly, I think people may not have just been too careful with the figure. That's the main thing, which you need to be careful with. Also, I notice a lot of people, when they'd be moving the figures, like their arms would pop off or something like that. Again, I think it's all just, being delicate with them, because they do work on a system of ball joints, and you have to be mindful of that. The only articulation I think would have been nice is if maybe there was a bit of wrist articulation at the hook. Instead, you just move it. You just move the entire arm like that. So that's a little bit of a bummer. It also would have been nice if maybe inside the tears, seeing as the figure's torsos and particularly the areas where the tears are more apparent, like the legs and arms, it would have been nice if maybe the pieces were hollow, so that it would look more like it was just a hollow costume fitting over a skinny endoskeleton, and then maybe you wouldn't have the endoskeleton sticking out the front, you'd have it inside, and it would look a little bit more as it does in the game. It's nothing too major, but I also noticed that Springtrap suffered from the same thing, where it was all just sculpted and then really, it was just thick on the inside, so it would have been nice if maybe they had made it hollow and just made it look a little bit more like it did in the game. He's got the little frizzy bits on the shoulder and on the top of his head. He's got his massive ears, which sadly do not move or anything like that. What's interesting is that the eye patch is actually closed, whereas in the promotional pictures it was open. You could see both eyes, but it's nothing too bad. I think you can actually remove the the eye patch piece is separate, and then you could probably just flip it up. Because I noticed there is actually another eye sculpted inside there, but you'd have to paint it yourself. Like Golden Freddy, he's got the little dimples on the side of his nose. His nose is actually sculpted different from how Freddy's and Bonnie's are, which is interesting. You can actually see evidence of nostrils, which is kind of cool. Makes him look more like a fox. But then, as you can see here, his jaw is probably the most open out of all the figures, and you can see a little black block inside, which looks a little crappy. I can understand it for being on like little 2-inch figures where he's got his mouth open all the way and he's got the block in there. It's because they're very fragile and they're very, very small and they could break easily, but this is a full, solid piece of plastic which shouldn't be able to break that easily, so it kind of sucks. Maybe it just helps for the ball joint in there. They needed to, well, no, I suppose they could just make it stop at a certain point, but I don't know. I don't work at Funko, so I can't really judge. Overall, very, very cool figure. He's also got his little brown eyebrows, which I think would have been nice if maybe they had painted it in a darker shade, as it kind of blends in a little bit too well. Maybe it doesn't look that much on camera, but in real life, the eyebrows blend in a little bit too well with the head. And I think also it would have been nice. Foxy probably has the worst paint wash to him, in that there's like literally none. I don't know if you can see it at all, but he just looks completely brand new, pristine and clean, which is not exactly what you'd think of when you see someone as beaten up and torn as this behind an out of order sign. I think the heavy wash that they use on Chica would have been really, really useful here, seeing as he is meant to be very beaten up and worn out, and he looks more orange than red, actually, when he's got light on him. I think what would have been better is if maybe they just painted him in a darker red, or if they had added more of a heavy wash to him. But overall, it's nothing really too major, and as I said, it's my personal favorite figure out of the entire line, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. So overall, the Funko Five Nights at Freddy's figures are very, very cool figures. A few little minor nitpicks here and there. The main issues I found myself reflecting on were paint issues. They do resemble the characters in the game, and it's very, very hard to mistake them, and they're very recognizable. Articulation-wise is very, very well done. They're good size as well. They're about 5 to 6 inches. They make for a great item on the desk. I wouldn't recommend using them as toys, because, even though a lot of people are saying, yeah, they are toys and so on and so forth, but like I said, the ball joints do pop off quite easy if you're just going to be flinging them around, so they're really cool as little display items if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my constant ramblings on a couple of toys, and I shall be seeing you in the next video. Goodbye!